Hello, this is Roland. Today I want to continue talking about prayer. This will be part 5 in my series about prayer. And I have emphasized that you have to be in the right place, the right space to pray. And what I want to say today is that that place or space is the natural place where humans are supposed to be, and where you would be if you hadn't been traumatized, if you hadn't been emotionalized, traumatized, if you hadn't fallen for the teases and taunts and challenges of the world, which you did. You either went for the challenges to try to prove something or to make yourself great, or you were seduced by them, thinking that you lacked something and that the world could give it to you. And the more you went for it, and the less you got it, all it did was whet your appetite to try harder and harder. So whether it was love, a happy home, something that other people had, nice shoes, a nice boyfriend or girlfriend, a nice car, money, fame, popularity, respect, okay, whatever it was, you went for it more and more. And always the world handed you a substitute for the real thing. And the more of the substitute you get, it's like drinking seawater. You know, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. See, you don't drink, you're not supposed to drink it, because if you do, you just become thirstier. So you became infected with the spirit of pride. And pride continues to grow. It's not even you. It's a spirit that lives in you. A spirit of pride that eggs you on. It was the voice in the garden that was on the outside, that voice that tempted and seduced Adam to be rebellious. Tempted him into an adventure, a selfish adventure where he thought his selfhood could be aggrandized. And that's what's happened to us all. Okay? One way or the other, whether we were overtly seduced or whether we became resentful. So a lot of people become resentful. They see the world seemingly getting ahead, people getting ahead and getting away with things and being popular, and they seem to have so much, and you think you don't have it. Or maybe you don't have it, okay? But you resent them. You resent them having it. Or you resent God for not giving it to you, or your parents for not being rich, or for not being cool. You resent something, someone, or everyone, eventually. But then you have to find your way back to this place or this space. And it's when you find it, then it becomes easier and easier to be there, because you found your home, your true home. Of course, not for everyone. Some people love pride, they love their rottenness, they love their rebellion, and they love teasing, and they love degrading other people, and they love that sort of thing. See? Or they're so full of hate, there's no kernel of there's no tiny spark of love left within them. Or maybe their self is gone. They've been totally taken over. But for most people, thankfully, there's always hope. There's always hope. See, even remember when Christ was on the cross, and there were 2 thieves. And one of the thieves continued to have a bad attitude, but the other thief recognized Christ and said, "Please remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Christ said, "Today you will be with me in paradise." See? So God showed his mercy. He showed his mercy and his graciousness. See? For that person. So there's always hope. So now what I want to say after that brief introduction, or lengthy introduction, I want to read you something from Madame Guyon's book. Madame Jeanne Guyon wrote a book called A Short and Easy Method of Prayer, or A Short and Very Easy Method of Prayer. And she basically is talking about the same things that I'm talking about, except I bring it up to date and talk about it differently, because maybe you can see it. Maybe you'll see what she's saying when you read her. Or maybe you'll see what I'm saying when you hear me. Or you'll read her and see me, hear me, and it'll click. You'll say, wow. See, what do they call that? The aha moment, the eureka moment? You'll get it. Okay? But just getting it is not, but getting it is good, okay? But it's not enough. You have to do it. See, you have to do it. You can't study your way to God. You can't learn your way to God. You actually have to do it. So all of the words that I speak, or that Madame Guyon writes, they all are to bring you to that threshold where you experience it for yourself. Okay? So now let's see what Madame Jeanne had to say. I have in my hand here this book. I'm very fond of this book. See, there are different translations of her work. She wrote it in French. And there are different versions, different titles. This one is called Experiencing God Through Prayer. Okay? This book has been around for a while. It's the first book I got. The first time I became acquainted with Madame Jeanne. And I tell the story of it in another other videos, and I'm not going to do it here because I want to get right to the important stuff. So I want to read, but anyway, I'm fond of this book because it's a sweet little translation. And also, I like the title, Experiencing God Through Prayer. Okay? So now let me read something to you from Madame Guyon, and I have it in the book here, and I also have it here in front of me. Chapter 1, the Prayer of the Heart. And I'll stop occasionally to point out what I feel is important. In other words, the point I'm trying to make today. She says, all are capable of prayer. And it is a dreadful misfortune that almost all the world has conceived the idea that they are not called to prayer. We are all called to prayer, as we are all called to salvation. So let me stop right there. She said we're all capable of prayer. Remember I said that the natural state is to be in that place or that space where you are closer to God. You're not lost in your imagination. You're not lost in worrying about the future or reliving the past. Okay? You're not lost in selfish pipe dreams of rebellion or glory or revenge or judgment of other people. Okay? You're in the present. In the present. And in the present, you experience the present, but you also experience you can also experience the presence of God. And I talk about that in my other videos, and in my meditation I talk about becoming aware of your hands, so your hands tingle a little bit and become warm. And all of a sudden you're in the present. You hear the sound of wind outside or a car going by. You hear the birds singing, or crickets. You hear a grandfather clock maybe ticking on the other side of the house. You notice and hear little things and see little things. And so you're in the moment. Instead of being lost between your two ears, worrying about the future or reliving the past, planning and scheming like you usually do, okay? So, all are capable of that. In fact, you were very close to that when you were a little child. When you were a little child, you lived in the present. Yes, you did have an active imagination, God, and it's proper that it be so for little children. It's natural for little children. Okay, I talk about that also in some of my other videos and my writings. But basically, when you were a little child, before you were upset and emotionalized and traumatized, you lived in the present, the beautiful, wonderful present. Now, the eternal now. Okay, not living in the past, thinking about the past and regretting the past and trying to rearrange the past, and not worrying about the future and planning and scheming to see, just in the present. And in the present, you is a world of discovery, and every day was a world of discovery and adventure. Okay? So, that's where you need to be. So, Madame Guyon said we're all capable of that. So, you know, look at it from the other point of view. Are all people capable of worrying? Yes, they are. Are all people capable of being resentful? Yes, they are. Are all people capable of not being there for others because they're so lost in selfishly resenting the past and worrying about getting ahead and proving something and all that stuff? Of course, yes, they are. So if all people are capable of that, then all people ought to also be capable of not doing that, of not being resentful, of not worrying, of being in the present, okay? And appreciating the present and being closer to God that way. Now, Madame Guyon continues. She says, prayer is nothing but the application of the heart to God and the internal exercise of love. St. Paul enjoined us to pray without ceasing, and our Lord bids us to watch and pray. All therefore may and all ought to practice prayer. So you see how, now do you see where I'm going with this? Do you see how prayer is being there, being in the present, not lost in thinking, not lost in the imagination, not lost in planning and scheming. Prayer is being in the present. Okay? So if you're living in the present, it's like, see, if you're living in the present, you are basically, it's like a constant prayer to God. See, if you're in the present, you know that God exists. You know that He's there. And you wait upon Him. And you know that He knows better than you do. And in the past you thought you could solve all your own problems. See, make everything right with your huffing and puffing and all your knowledge and your cleverness, and all you did was make a mess out of everything. So now you see that. So now you wait upon Him. And also, you like to be near to Him. It's like being close to Father. You know, if Father's, when you were a little tiny child and Father was home, and then you could jump on the sofa and sit beside Father, maybe He would read you from a book or something. Okay? So you feel secure. Dad is home. Okay? Dad is home. You don't have to be afraid because Dad is home. Okay? Something like that. Okay, so Madame Guyon continues. Let all pray. You should live by prayer as you live by love. This is very easily obtained, much more easily than you can conceive. See, who seduced you into not being happy with what you were and who you were? Who seduced you into wanting to prove something, to be more than you are? Who seduced you to be endlessly thinking about making good and proving something and judging other people? And see, who seduced you into that? See, seduced you away from reality, from the beautiful present, into a hell of frustration and resentment and no peace, of striving and struggling. See, someone seduced you away. Well, now you need to come back home again, back to the present, closer to God. Madame Guyon continues. She says, children, draw near to your Father, and He will embrace you in the arms of love. Come, you poor, stray, wandering sheep, return to the shepherd. Come, all dull, ignorant, all illiterate. You who think yourselves the most incapable of prayer, you are more peculiarly called and adapted thereto. Let all without exception come to Jesus. Come, for Jesus Christ has called all. Okay? So in other words, you don't have to be smart. You don't have to be literate. You don't have to have studied anything. You don't have to be just All you have to do is come into the present moment. Okay. So she continues. Let me see here. What else does she say here? She says, a prayer is the key to perfection and the sovereign good. It is the means of delivering us from every vice and obtaining us every virtue. For the one great means of becoming perfect is to walk in the presence of God. He himself has said, walk before me and be thou perfect. Okay, that's from Genesis chapter 17, verse 1, I think. It is by prayer alone that we are brought into his presence and maintained in it without interruption. So that's the idea, to come into the presence of God. And it is the key to perfection. There's no other way, you see, than coming to God and coming closer to God. Okay, that's the only way. You must then learn a species of prayer which may be exercised at all times, which does not obstruct outward employments, and which may be equally practiced by princes, kings, prelates, priests, magistrates, soldiers, children, tradesmen, laborers, women, men, sick persons. It is not the prayer of the head, but of the heart. So I think that was the main point I wanted to make today, is that anyone can do this prayer, and everyone should do this prayer, because it's the natural state. You want to become like a little child again. Remember, Christ said, unless you become like a little child. So you have to come back to the present, back to the now. Okay? And when you are in the now, see, you are there. So you can be a mom, a dad, a husband, a wife, a student, a neighbor, whatever job you have. You can do all of these things, but now with a little bit of awareness, and that little, and always there, not gone. Okay? Now the rest of your life, the rest of your life will be a process of snapping out of the daydream, snapping out of your imagination, because your imagination is very powerful, and it will try to pull you away. It will try to seduce you away again. Remember, in the garden, Adam was seduced away from the beautiful present. And that's what happened to you, too. You couldn't help it. You were just a little child, and the world was too strong, and there was too much cruelty, and tease, and challenges, and pressures. All manner of pressures. School pressure, grade pressure, drug pressure, homework pressure, achievement pressure, sports pressure, peer group pressure, drug pressure. Do I need to go on? Okay. So there was that. And many other pressures that I don't need to go into. But all you need to see now is that you were seduced away from being home in the present and close to God. See, in which, in his light, you could have grown and flourished and as you were meant to. But instead, you were seduced away through your imagination, lured away, teased away, challenged away. See? So there's no use going into all the millions of variations of how it comes to pass. All you need to see now is that you need to come back home to the present again and get closer to God. Okay? That's why I have I talk about my meditation and about hand warming and about living in the present. See? I'm calling you back. Or my words are seeking to get you to find that threshold where you come back to the light. So instead of fleeing the light and hiding in the imagination, now you welcome the light and you want to be in the present. Okay? So it's that little change in attitude, that little change in orientation, a little change in polarity. And when that happens, okay, then after that, you're home free. You've got it made in the shade after that. Okay? Because after that, you are in tow. God takes you under his wing and you're in tow. Remember in Star Trek? Remember the television show Star Trek? And the Starship Enterprise, where they had this tractor beam. Do you remember that? They had a tractor beam where they could lock onto something and take it, and hold it and bring it with them, lock onto some large other spaceship or something. Well, God has a tractor beam. So then after that, you can't go wrong after that, even if you make a mistake. See, remember it says in the Bible, all serves, for those who love the Lord, everything serves the good. So after you have the little change in polarity, and you welcome God's light, and you want to live in God's light, okay, then after that, then you're in tow, you're in his care. Then you go about your life as a mom, dad, husband, wife, real estate broker, accountant, construction worker, whatever you are, bus driver, doesn't matter what you are, student, unemployed person, whatever you are, you just go about your life, and everything will serve the good. Even should you make a mistake, it'll serve the good, because you'll see your mistake in the light, see, and you'll be able to see what you never saw before, and regret the mistake, and you change for the better that way. Okay, change for the better. It's very simple, and like Madame Guyon said, all are capable of this prayer. So you see, it's not a thing of words. It's not a thing of words. Okay, I'll talk about that maybe in the next video. Right now, what you need to see is that it's a place to be. It's a space. It has to do with your attitude of wanting to know the truth. See, and being sick and tired of being sick and tired, and sick and tired of hating other people and resenting other people and judging other people. And now you just want to find something good and something pure, something noble. See, and you know that it's there. Although, remember I said your imagination will try to pull you away. It'll try to pull you away with any trivial thought, any silly thing, and doubts. It'll try to make you, it'll try to seduce you with doubt. Doubting God, doubting good, doubting anything like that. It's what it'll do. So what do? You just observe it. Just see that it's doing that. That's all. Don't struggle with it. Don't give in to it, but don't struggle with it either. Just see it. Just observe it, and it'll flee. See, and then later it'll be back, trying to seduce you away again. And sometimes you'll get lost in thinking about the future, or planning, and then you'll notice that you were lost in that. And the moment you notice that you're lost in it, then you're back in the present again. Okay? So it's like a living prayer. See, living in the present, in God's light, is like a living prayer.